Hi, Math Knights. This is Mr. Martiello, and I'm here to play one of our favorite games called My Favorite Mistake. So here you go. I have a task in front of me, and I have to put a bunch of fractions in order. And so I have to understand how to compare fractions. And I thought I had a pretty good idea. So I had to put 5 fractions in order, and I decided, you know what? I'm going to take their denominators. And the lower denominators I'm going to put toward 0, toward the front of the number line. And the larger denominators I'm going to put at the other side of the number line, closer to 1. Here are the 5 fractions and the order that I put them in. 2/3, 3/4, 3/5, 4/6, and 7/12. That's the order I put them in. But I have a feeling I made a mistake. Can you help me? Can you help coach me through this mistake? Can you find where my error was? Can you tell me the proper way to order these fractions? Why don't you pause the video right here, take a moment to reflect on the task, and then record your response. We look forward to seeing them. Did you figure out my favorite mistake? If you still need some help, I have this video that I created, and you can see how I used area models using the fraction app from the Math Learning Center on how to compare fractions. You will see how to compare fractions with like denominators, how to compare fractions with like numerators, and you'll learn how to compare fractions using unlike denominators and unlike numerators. And then finally, you'll get to see how I compared all of these fractions and put them in order on a number line. Hello, Math Knights. This is Mr. Martiello, and I'm here to help you to compare fractions using area models. We are going to be utilizing an app from the Math Learning Center called Fractions, and we can create fraction bars or fraction circles to compare two fractions. This app will be helpful for you because sometimes when we go to draw them on a piece of paper, we try to draw a visual representation of the fraction. Sometimes lines don't evenly match, and sometimes we don't draw the equal parts real well. This app will help you as we continue to utilize it to compare fractions more precisely. So let's get started. So let's talk about the first way we can compare fractions. We can compare fractions through their denominators. And if their denominators are alike, then we have a situation where the parts of the whole, so we have fourths here and we have fourths here, all these parts are equal because they take the whole and they cut it up into 4 equal parts. So the next thing I do is I just take a look at the difference in the denominator or in the numerator. And the numerator here has 3. So we have 3 of the 4 pieces colored in here and 2 of the 4 pieces colored in here. And we can definitely tell that 3/4 is greater than 2/4. Let's talk about like numerators now. We have like numerators here. We have 4/6 and we have 4/5. The numerators are both the same, but that doesn't make this equivalent because look here, the 6ths are different size pieces than the 5ths. So even though we have the same number of pieces colored in, the 5ths seem to look a little bigger, even though 5 is less than 6. When we break up a whole into 5 pieces, the pieces with the smaller denominator are bigger or larger or greater. So let's take a look here. If I were to pull this next to the other, so let's take 4/5 and pull that over here next to 4/6, you can definitely see that 4/5 is greater, and it's because the pieces are a lot bigger than those in the 6th. So even though we've colored in the same number of pieces, these pieces are definitely larger. So 4/6 is less than 4/5. So in this part of the video, we're going to talk about unlike numerators and unlike denominators. So the number of pieces colored in the numerator, that is different, as well as the size of the pieces, because the denominators are different. So I have to cut them into a different amount of equal pieces. Take a look at this one. We have 3/4 and 8/10. 4 is definitely, if you took 4 by itself and 10 by itself, 4 is definitely less than 10. However, in this case, look how big a fourth is, and look how big a 10th is. You see why we kind of need that visual? Because even if I colored in all these pieces, it's really tough to see if one is larger or greater than the other. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Again, I love doing this with the app. I love, just to make sure, because it says here that 3/4 is less than 8/10. Let's just double check that. Let's pull this one over to see. Well, you can see it just edges it out. 8/10 is just a hair bigger than 3/4. Again, this is why I love this app, to be able to compare these two fractions. Even when you're comparing fractions with unlike numerators and unlike denominators, we have to make sure that we are precise, and this app will allow you to do that. All right, Math Knights, this is our final task before we wrap this up. Many times we'll be asked to compare fractions to 1, or and that actually helps us to understand like how close to one might be versus another one. So this is another way to compare fractions. But we're going to take our fraction bars here, and we are going to figure out where they fall on this number line between 0, 1/2, and 1. So let's take a look. And we can definitely manipulate these. We can create our own fractions if we wanted to, and then try to compare them. That might be fun. But let's take this one. We have 4/6 and 3/5. That sounds like it's pretty close together. In this case, when we put these together, we can see that 3/5 is definitely less than 4/6. So in order from 0 to 1, this one's going to be closer to 1. 4/6 will be closer to 1 than 3/5. Notice how both of the holes, like if I took this whole piece and this whole piece, they're equal. If I try to compare these two and this hole is bigger than this one, this comparison really doesn't work, because look what happens to the numerator. It gets all stretched out. So we always want to have fractions that are the same size, and this is why we're using this app, so we can be more precise. So I definitely know that 4/6 is greater than 1/2, because 1/2 will be like right around here. So I'm going to put this over here, and I know that 3/5 is less than 4/6. So I'm going to put that over on this side. Let's see what other fractions we have. Let's take 3/4 here. Is 3/4 less than or greater than 4/6? We can see right here that it is greater than 4/6 when I put it up to it. So it is definitely closer to 1. And what do I know about 3/4 as I keep these in order? It's about halfway between 1/2 and 1. So I could put that right here on the number line. And then I put this next, and maybe this next. Okay. Now let's take a look at 2/3. 2/3 is 2/3 less than, equal to, or greater than 3/5. It is bigger. All right. Let's take a look at the next fraction. Is it greater than or less than or equal to 4/6? Oh my word, it's equal to. Well, what do we do on a number line now? You know what we do? Watch this. I'll put this fraction below this one, because I know that they're both the same and they fall in the same spot on the number line. So 4/6 is equal or equivalent to 2/3. Finally, we have 7/12. This is a crazy fraction, but visually, because the holes are the same, I can definitely compare it. Well, it's definitely less than 2/3. So if it's less than 2/3, it's definitely less than 4/6 and less than 3/4. Let's take a look at it as compared to 3/5. 7/12, and boy, that is really close. But it looks as though This is why we need this app, because this would be really tough to draw. Take a look. 7/12 is less than 3/5. It's also a little bit more than 1/2. 1/2 would be here. That would be like 6/12 would be 1/2. So it's not equivalent to 1/2. So, and it is greater than 1/2. So it lie right here. So this is a great exercise for you if you wanted to build your own fractions and then put them on a number line like this. It would definitely help you to practice using this tool, creating models, but more importantly, comparing fractions based on unlike numerators and unlike denominators, and being able to model this and reason through it and explain it back to your teachers as to why one fraction might be greater than, less than, or equal to another. There you have it, Math Knights. We compared fractions using area models. We use those area models to compare fractions with like denominators. We also compared fractions with like numerators, and we compared fractions with unlike denominators and unlike numerators. Finally, we took a whole bunch of fractions and we were able to use these area models to compare them to one another and place them on a number line. I wish you well as you continue your journey understanding fractions. Take care.